I'm Phil Heimlich, and we call this the radical middle. Okay, remember back when you were in school? I'm sure you took some kind of history or civics course. And if you can remember this, the teacher would say that these are the basics of American government, at least federal government. The Congress passes the laws, the president enforces the laws, and the courts interpret the law. We probably all heard that and studied it. Essentially, what that means as far as the courts go is that they decide what the laws mean and what they don't mean. Now, here's what's tricky. The federal courts kind of rely on us to do what they tell us to do. They don't have an army or a police force. Now, they have federal marshals that can carry out the court's orders, but those marshals are under the control of the president, in other words, the executive branch. Okay, what's important to know about this is that if a president decides not to obey the courts, there's really nothing we can do. Those federal marshals are not going to disobey what their boss, the president, says. 2 days ago, the Trump administration put a bunch of Venezuelans on planes and sent them off to El Salvador, where the El Salvador government basically agreed to put them in jail in El Salvador in return for being paid. These were supposedly gang members. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but there was no evidentiary hearing. There was no court hearing where the government had to prove they were gang members. One of the relatives of these Venezuelans sued, and the judge decided that no, this is unconstitutional. You can't do this. And he ordered the Trump administration to turn around the planes and to not send any more planes down there. The problem is that the administration basically said, screw it. We're still going to send the planes and we're not going to turn them around. What's scary about this is that once the Trump administration says they're not going to obey one court, they're likely not to obey others. You may not like the federal courts. You might think, hey, these Venezuelan thugs, they ought to be deported. But if it's you whose rights are violated, and you sue the government, and the court tells the government to stop whatever they're doing, and the government says, screw it, we don't follow the courts, we don't obey the courts, how would you feel then? I'm Phil Heimlich, and this is the Radical Middle.